Hey friends, I want to talk about the Bodhisattva Vows and my relationship to them and what they mean to me. It's been 5 years since I've taken them, which from the perspective of the vows is not a very long time at all. But yeah, I'd like to speak about them and talk about my relationship with them and reflect on that. Part of the occasion is I've been thinking about this tweet from Christine that I talked to her about on my podcast the other day about little groups of 3 to 4 friends. And I realized, I already have a group of 3 to 4 friends, and several of them. And one of them is the 3 gentlemen that I took Bodhisattva Vows with. And just the other day, we formed a group chat of the 4 of us and got to talking about what the vows mean to us. I can't believe we didn't already have a group chat for the 4 of us, but there we are. We have remedied that. And, each of us is sharing what the vows mean to us and how they've evolved over the 5 years since we took the vows. And so I thought I'd make this video for them and also share it with the world. The first thing I want to say is that the vows are mysterious to me. I do not feel like I understand them. I couldn't possibly tell you if I'm living them well on their own terms. I don't even know what that means. And that used to terrify me. Before I took the vows, that terrified me. There was about 2 years where I really wanted to take the vows, where I was interested in taking the vows, where I was admiring my friends who were taking the vows, and I just had so much resistance. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm signing up for, and this seems impossible. Like, maybe someone else could do this, but definitely not me. And it's really, I guess in retrospect, I was really making it about me and my own inadequacy and my own weaknesses. And, I was like 25 at the time and just waking from this slumber of like awkwardness and incompetence and confusion and whatever. I definitely was not the person that I am now. I was very uptight, very anxious, very neurotic, all kinds of things. I guess those tendencies are still there in some way, but there's been real shifts. People who've known me for that long know that there's been real shifts. And I remember doing a retreat with Shinzen during the time that I was between stints at Maple, between 2 long training periods there. I was a layperson at the time, not training at Maple, but I went for a retreat with Shinzen, and I don't even remember what he said, but something just dawned on me. It was like, my relationship to the vows just totally shifted in that. Before it had been, I can't do this. This is too hard. I don't even know what this is. This is impossible. Resistance to, this is the only thing that makes sense. Of course I'm going to do this. And it just makes sense to take the vows. And there was just a total willingness all of a sudden to take the vows. And it was like, I don't know what they mean. And I don't know if I can do it, but what else am I going to do with my life? And I would say that was the arising of one way of seeing towards the Bodhisattva vows that has been very powerful for me, which is just very simple, which gave me permission to take them internally, made it possible for me to take them internally despite that resistance, despite not knowing what they meant, which was viewing the Bodhisattva vows just as a commitment to being of service. Like, I am going to use my life to be of service. That's what this life is for. What else would I do besides be of service? Like, it didn't make sense. Of course I'm going to try to be of service. I was already doing that. I was already trying to do that anyway. And it was just this like almost, I talked to my friend Shanti yesterday, and she was talking about game theory, and this was on the podcast, and it's like, I don't know too much about game theory, but almost from a game theoretic perspective, it's like, this is the only thing that makes sense. And sometimes I get flashes of this, of like, I don't know how to describe this, but like in every possible realm, wherever I might incarnate or wherever anyone might incarnate, the only thing that makes sense to do is to take the Bodhisattva vows, is to be of service to all beings. And that's a really felt sense. It's like logical on an intuitive level, not a conceptual level. Like I can't explain that to you right now, but just something about interdependence and interconnection and knowing that's what's good for anyone is good for everyone. It's like the only thing, if that's true, then the only thing that makes sense is to take the vows and to try to be of service. And that's a really, this view that I arrived at, it was very simple. I call this like the simple way of seeing the Bodhisattva vows. It's like, well, I don't know what it means to liberate all sentient beings, or to end all greed, hatred, and delusion, or master all paths to truth, to complete the way of the Buddha. I genuinely do not know what those mean. I'm inspired by those words. I try to live them, but do I know what that means? Have I done that? Heck if I know. But to be of service, I can do that. I can try to be of service today. Like I'm trying to be of service by making this video, for example, and maybe I'll make some more videos, and then I'm gonna have some calls, and just help someone, just to roll up one's sleeves and do something, anything to help anyone. That is trying to be of service. And that's simple. It's not easy. And it's not easy to do that day after day, year after year for the rest of one's life. But that was the intention, is like, yeah, I'm going to use my life to be of service. I'm going to try to live each day and each year to be of service. The way I put it in the guild oath, the service guild oath, is I aspire to serve all beings with my days and my years. That's weaving in the Bodhisattva vows into that and putting it in contemporary language, that particular view of it anyway. And that just makes sense to me. It's like, let's be of service. And I have tried to live that for the last 5 years. I've tried to be of service day after day, year after year, and I intend to do that for the rest of my life. So that was what allowed me to take the vows at all. And I'm going to go on a brief tangent to talk about the sash. The sashes, when we took the vows, we received sashes, an informal sash and a formal sash, and I wore those every day for years. And then last year I stopped wearing them. As you can see, I'm not wearing the sash that I was given. It was really, really, really helpful to me to have those sashes. Like, I don't really know how to describe that to someone else who hasn't worn the same kind of piece of clothing for years. But to me, it was like a constant reminder and symbol of, hey, I've taken these vows and I'm going to try to live them. And it was almost like Tasshin used to call them a samadhi seatbelt and safety belt or something. And it's like, it was like an ethics safety belt to me, of like, every time I put it on or took it off, it would remind me, hey, I'm going to try to live according to this. And sometimes I would feel this almost like tension if I was out of alignment with it. And I would be really acutely aware of when I wasn't wearing it. And like, it would feel uncomfortable. It's like, no, I need to wear this, unless I was like taking a shower or sleeping or something. And it was comforting and clarifying and guiding. It's like, and helped me tell a story about myself. Like, this is who I am. Really, if anything, it was for me to tell that story to myself. And I remember there was such a palpable shift right after I took the vows. I wish I'd written about this, but it was like I was taken to a new level of clarity and purpose and self-identity, where it was like, this is who I am now. And it was like whole system alignment around the Bodhisattva vows. And that was very prominent for like a week or two after I took the vows, and then it faded a bit. Not like diminished, but just was less prominent. It was just like, yeah, this is who I am now. And, wearing clothes is such powerful psychotechnology. And I really came to value those sashes and that practice of wearing the sashes. I think I took that pretty seriously, certainly while I was at Maple, but even after, I was like, of course I'm going to keep wearing it. I took those vows just because I'm leaving monastic training. Doesn't mean that those vows don't apply anymore. I took those vows kind of indefinitely, irrevocably, for the rest of this life and future lives. And really, I feel increasingly like I took them before this life. Like I believe in reincarnation, and it felt like remembering them and renewing them rather than taking them for the first time. In fact, I remember coming to understand this moment that I had as a child, where I was looking out a window and in my childhood bedroom, and somehow like really facing the mystery of the universe and like what even is the universe. And I really wanted to know what the universe was and what it meant to live a good life and how to live a beautiful life, a virtuous life. And I was like, well, I really don't know what the universe is. I have no idea. And even in the face of that not knowing, I didn't use these words explicitly. It was all very like a felt sense, but I remember the feeling of it, and I would translate it into words as, I vow to be a good person. Even though I do not know what it means to be a good person, I vow to be a good person. In the face of utter confusion and mystery about what the universe is and what it means to live a good life within it, still I vow to be a good person, to try to be a good person. I aspire to be a good person. I will strive. I will dedicate myself to being a good person. Of course, I was like 6 or 7, so I didn't use those words at all, but that was the felt sense of it. I knew that I would need to understand what the universe was, what its truth is, to have any hope of living a beautiful, ethical, noble life somehow on an intuitive level. And I knew that I didn't know what the universe was, and yet vowed anyway. And my life has been a search for that. And not that I have any certainty now, but I feel like I have some more clarity or answers. Like I've earned that to some extent. But anyway, the clothes were very useful for me. And at some point, the sash in particular, and brown, and the garment of a sash stopped feeling like the thing. And so I remember realizing like, oh, I think in the future I'm going to wear a multicolored wizard robe. Like that just started to seem like the thing. It was like the total opposite of brown. I still love brown as a color. It's become one of my favorite color, brown and tan and so on, and earth tones. My favorite color as a kid was red, actually. And then I had to abandon that for some years when I was at Maple. But I really love red, and I love brown, and I love pink, and I love purple. Now that I've started drawing, I've come to love pink and purple. Those are kind of my favorite colors. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to wear a multicolored wizard robe. And then I was doing a dance party in the Bay, and my friend Kitten overheard me, Profesh Kitten on Twitter. And then later that night, she gave me a ride home, and she was like, by the way, just as I was being dropped off where I was staying, she's like, by the way, you don't need to wear this, but I just want to hand this to you, and if you try it on, if you like it, it's fine. And she had a robe that she offered to me as a gift, and it was a multicolored robe, and she'd been like, well, I always really liked this, but it never quite felt like me. And then I heard you talking about this, and I was like, oh, I think this is for Tasshin. And I put it on. I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is the thing. I manifested that, or the universe really wanted me to have that, and I had an intuition of it ahead of time, a premonition, and I started wearing that robe, and it was so perfect. It was just like, yes, this is my dharma at this time. And it felt like it served the function of the sash, but in a way that was in accordance with my contemporary practice of the Dharma, not the Maple era, which was wonderful and formative, but like this current Tasshin, love, fun, pilgrim person, guildmaster. And then the summer came, and I was like, well, this coat is way too hot. And I can't wear the coat all the time. So I found these like faux dashiki shirts, which I wear. And yeah, really now, actually, whatever I wear on my chest, it feels like the sash, or providing the same function as the sash. Like these muscle shirts that I wear, these brown muscle shirts, which I love, or even being shirtless because of my tattoos. Like I've literally tattooed my vow to my body, or the brown sweatshirts that I still wear sometimes, or I have this brown coat that I use as a winter coat. But I want my clothes to express my Dharma to me, so that I remember, and then signal that to the world also. Soryu would talk about that it's like to signal that you're a trustworthy person. That was the purpose of the sash, or a purpose of the sash. But I found value in signaling to myself that I was a trustworthy person, that I was trying to live the Bodhisattva vows, that I was holding myself to that, and ultimately being held by it. So the view of being of service is sort of the simple way of seeing the Bodhisattva vows that I've really, that allowed me to take them, and that I've returned to again and again, and that I try to live by day by day. There's another way of seeing, or another view, that's been incredibly useful to me, and I would say inspiring to me. The first one is useful and pragmatic. This one is inspiring. And it's really about the fourth vow, Buddha way without compare, vow to complete it, to fulfill it. Importantly, Forel would talk about this, but the vows don't actually have like an I in them. No one vows them. No one takes them. It's just, sentient beings without number vow to liberate them. There is vowing. Any case, the fourth one is about the path of the Buddha and vow to fulfill it, vow to complete it. And I have really come to love the Theravadan view in particular of what a Buddha is. The Theravadins have this incredible cosmology and mythology of what a Buddha is that I learned about, especially through reading the book, The Great Disciples of the Buddha, because the way I would describe it and summarize it from that book is like, which is based on the sutras, but it's sort of a collection of curated sutras and commentary about them, about the disciples of the Buddha. The way I would describe it or summarize it is, there's this, the universe is born and goes through cycles of birth and death, just like all of us, and there are countless births and deaths of the universe across kalpas, like huge aeons of time. It's actually a specific measure, but basically a lot of time. And there is a fractal recurring structure of the universe, and within that of a Buddha. So in this perspective, a Buddha occurs very, very, very infrequently, but repeatedly in the fractal nature of the universe. And whenever a Buddha occurs, according to the Theravadan cosmology, there's like a fractal structure of the kinds of beings that arise around the Buddha. So like Ananda, for example, was the Buddha's assistant and the one that remembered his teachings and recorded them such that they could be dispensed and dispersed. And that is a role that recurs alongside a Buddha. And there are other roles, and this book goes into great detail. It's like the most prominent layperson that's a man, the most prominent layperson that's a woman, the senior most monk that's senior in wisdom, the senior most monk in compassion, the senior most nun in wisdom, the senior most nun in compassion, whatever. There's a whole entourage that recurs fractally according to this cosmology. And a Buddha, from this perspective, is not only a being that has completed the spiritual path, that has seen through, totally awakened, what have you, whatever that means. That's above my pay grade. But there's someone who I would describe as has lived so many lives and so many kinds of lives that they have deeply developed all the virtues, basically, and powers, and are, most importantly, are capable of meeting each and every being and supporting them and teaching them as they are. And that vision of a Buddha, whether it's true or mythological, has been incredibly inspiring to me, because I recognize that. I recognize how my teachers have been able to meet me where I am and help me where I am, exactly as I am, and how, to some extent, I'm starting to be able to do that, to just have a conversation with someone and meet them where they are and help them where they are, and how that's formed possible because of my own life experiences, in this life certainly, but I truly believe in other previous lives. And also, it not only is it inspiring, but it gave this sense of possibility to that to me, where it's like, at the time, especially of taking the vows, but certainly now as well, there's just this sense of like, hey, I'm Tasshin, and I'm a lovely, sweet being that means well, but I'm sort of goofy and awkward and confusing, and I make mistakes all the time, and I was dissatisfied with myself and just acutely aware of my own incompetence. And it's like, I'm not going to be a Buddha in this lifetime. Maybe I'll develop spiritual virtues, but complete and total Buddhahood, that's just so unlikely to happen in this lifetime by this measure, right? Other people talk about Buddhahood differently, and you really, Buddhahood could just be like total presence with this moment, in which case, in a way, I'm a Buddha right now, right? Like, brah. And that's a useful way of seeing too, but this one was mythologically inspiring to me, I would say. Like, it spoke to my soul. It was a form of soul making that inspired me and moved me, and I was just acutely aware of my own incompetence, and I was intimately dissatisfied with that. And this view made it possible to believe, hey, I may not be a Buddha in this lifetime, but I can work towards Buddhahood in a future life. I can make use of every day and every opportunity and every interaction to learn about beings and who they are and who I am and how to support them, and just move in that direction. And it gave this sense of vast permissioning of like basically playing a long game. Seeing the Bodhisattva Vows is a very long game, and I'm just going to keep incarnating and strive for Buddhahood across lifetimes, develop spiritual virtues in this lifetime, in this day, in this moment, right? And that hopefully is like a prayer for Buddhahood in a future lifetime. And almost this sense of time being weird and non-linear, and by taking the vows, I already am a Buddha in a future lifetime. And I've done work like time magic, basically, to connect to my future self as a Buddha, not in this lifetime, but in the future lifetime where I'm a Buddha. And that's been incredibly powerful, because he can give me advice, he can give me discernment about what's happening. And also, when I've interacted with him, I have a thread about this, but like, I feel reverence for him and for all Buddhas, of course, but then I felt, when interacting with him, reverence from him for me. It's like, well, yeah, you're not a Buddha, but you're the only Tasshin there ever has been or ever will be. And Tasshin is a very cool person. Like, wow, what a beautiful being. And that was so healing to receive from the Buddha, like this future Buddha that is me, that is across lifetimes. And, all of this is just a gestalt that is inspiring to me. Like, of course, other people are going to see this differently. And to heck if I know if this is like cosmologically correct. I really don't know. That's above my pay grade. And I'm certainly that there are people who disagree with me about it, but this is the kind of thing that inspires me personally, and it's important to be connected to what inspires you. And on the one side, it's just like, hey, I'm just going to be of service. And on the other side, the other thing is just, hey, I'm going to be a Buddha in a future lifetime. And this life is for practicing. It's both this sense of this particular view, both gives this sense of the deep importance of striving towards Buddhahood and total permission and patience with how long it may take across lifetimes. That takes the pressure off this day or this month. It's just like, yeah, just use this day well. And that itself will cultivate spiritual virtue. And both of those kind of resolved my psyche and the particular twists and tangles that I had that were blocking me from taking the vows, even though I'd chanted them for years. And so that's really important too, is, I chanted these vows for years, daily, sometimes twice daily, before breakfast and lunch when I was at Maple. And I still chant them from time to time on different occasions. And they're very powerful. I mean, energetically, they're very powerful. I sort of learned how to chant them with my body and also with my heart, knowing what each verse means. Forall would talk about that, of like, don't just mouth the words, but like connect to the meaning, not in a conceptual way, but in a felt way, I would say. And so they're very powerful to chant. And I did that for years. And I've been realizing, people often ask me, like, where does your energy come from? Like, how do you do so much, and what's up with that? And a not insignificant part of that for me, I think, is the vows and having chanted them for years and aligning the whole body, mind, the soul, the heart, unifying, harmonizing around that intention to be of service, to liberate beings, to end greed, hatred, and delusion, to learn from each situation and opportunity, to strive towards Buddhahood. Of course there would be energy, of course there would be compassion, of course there would be desire to serve from there, from having chanted those countless times. And that brings me to another benefit of the vows, which I was telling someone about the other day. I've heard Forall talk about this too, but in his own way, but I'll speak about it in my way, which is, if the Bodhisattva vows are like demonstrably on the surface impossible, like how are you going to liberate all beings? What does that even mean? And how would you liberate all of them? How would you end all hate, greed, and delusion? What does that mean? How is that possible, etc.? And you resolve to do them anyway. It's like, knowing this is impossible, I vow to have the courage to do it anyway. Knowing this is impossible, vow to do it anyway. That's kind of the stance that you have towards the vows. It's like, I don't know what this means. I don't know if I can do it, but here we go. And returning to that again and again, it's like committing to doing something patently impossible, so daunting, so confusing, makes all of the human activities that you could possibly do, no matter how large they are on the human scale, seem trivial in comparison. It's like, well, yeah, that's going to be hard, but it's feasible. And so for me, like, committing to spending the rest of my life dedicated to spreading love or following my curiosity or empowering others, which I've done and I've tattooed to my body as a specific clarification of what my vow in particular is, my calling, my life purpose for this life, this incarnation, that felt easy. That was like, okay, I'm going to spend 30, 40, 50 years doing a lot of metta and talking to people about metta. Like, I could do worse than that, you know? And I was thinking about this in the context of having kids, because my stated preference is not having kids. And if I were to have kids, which is still possible, it's like, yeah, that feels really daunting and really hard. And I also just know I could do it. It's like, okay, loving a child for 20 years and raising them and doing one's best to care for them and make sure they're safe and that they grow up into a beautiful, noble, independent individual that has what they need to flourish in their own life, to become who they are, to do what they came here to do. Yeah, that's going to be really hard. And also I can totally do that. I could do that. Running the service guild for years. I plan to do that indefinitely for the rest of my life. It's going to be really hard. Of course, it will have all kinds of challenges and obstacles over the years. And I can do that. And I've built up this reservoir of trust and self-confidence over the last 5 years, even especially over the last 4 years since I left the monastery. Oh gosh, I got the number wrong. It's 7 years since we've taken the vows. I had 5 in my head because for some reason. Anyway, it's 4 years since I've left the training and 7 years since we took the vows. Which was significant, actually. The day of 7 years, I was in Singapore with my friend River, who's a very dear Dharma friend at this point, and we did a spell or a ceremony together that included the Bodhisattva vows, but was also to other ends and then was incredibly powerful and psychoactive for me. That's a whole other story, but it just sort of happened, quote, happened to be on the 7th anniversary of taking the vows. And then it was like, oh, this feels like kind of fated. And I realized since then that the number 7 is kind of like a, I guess, a interesting number, astrologically, where it was just like, it didn't just happen to be that day that we did it, and that I happened to be with River, who would be the one that I would do that ceremony with. Anyway, I forget where I was, but, oh yeah, the service guild. It's like over the last 4 years, I have found my own sense of my life's work and my calling and my vow, my mission for this incarnation, and dedicated myself to that. And I know that that is going to be a long-term effort. Like when I met Mary, I was like, hey, now that I've clarified from meeting you that empowerment is part of my vow, I just know already I'm going to work on this for something like 30 or 40 years. And would you like to join me? And she was like, yeah, let's go. And I don't know how I knew this, but I just knew that if I could ask her that question, and that if she said yes, she would mean it and follow through, in a way that made sense for us, which includes that we might renegotiate that or something or whatever, but that she would really honor that intention. And she has for the 3 years that I've known her. But my point is, over the last 4 years, I've built up tremendous confidence in myself that I can follow through on the things that I care about. And I think when I left Maple, I didn't really have that. I think that's part of why I left Maple, was I knew that more was possible for me, and that I didn't have the integrity really, and the self-trust and the self-confidence and the virtue needed to do those things, or to do anything that I committed to. It's like I had a lot of those things, but not sufficient. And now I just know I'm the kind of person who can set an intention and do it for years. I haven't proven that on the order of decades yet, but I kind of just know that I can and will. And that includes knowing that things change, and that the universe changes, and people change, and circumstances change, and things come up, and like that's going to look very different in a variety of worlds and outcomes, but to honor the intention of it, that I'll follow through with. Like my love tattoo was my first tattoo, the one about the Brahma Viharas, and I was just like, yeah, I might change a lot. I'm going to change a lot over the rest of my life, but I really can't envision a different version of myself that doesn't care about love. Like I may even decide to stop teaching love and kindness or spreading it, but I'm still going to care about love and want to embody it myself. Like I've been around, at that point I'd been around for 30 years, and I was like, I've cared about love my whole life. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, one of my maxims, my catchphrases was, keep love in your heart. And I really believe came from reincarnation, because I was like, where did that come from? Why did I care about that? I mean, I can kind of trace it to reading Erich Fromm's The Art of Loving, which I was pretty obsessed with. But why was I obsessed with The Art of Loving in particular, and not other books, or not Fromm's other books? To me, reincarnation. So for me, the Bodhisattva vows are a desire to be of service, to use one's days and one's life to serve others, to serve all beings. And they're also a vow to be a Buddha in a future lifetime, and living one's life in accordance with that, trying to learn from each situation and grow through each situation so that you can be of higher benefit in the future. And from living those two views, especially for the past 7 years, it's been transformative. The vows are still mysterious. Do I know what they mean? Do I have spiritual authority about what they mean? No, I can just tell you what they mean to me, and that's what they mean to me. I'll also say as an aside that a lot of people will talk about this view of committing to reincarnate and to not fully awaken until all beings are liberated. And that may be true on a cosmological level. I don't know. I really don't know. And that may be inspiring for some people, and I can kind of see why, but I just haven't focused too much on that view in particular, even if it's true, because it hasn't been inspiring to me, and it kind of feels, I still have some things to feel through about that. And it's just like, I also don't know. I just really don't know, but I do know in myself that I want to be of service. And I do know that the myth of a Buddha, the story of what it means to be a Buddha is inspiring to me. And so I can live by that. And anyway, the more I've lived those two views, the more I'm entrenched with the mystery of what they are, of what the Bodhisattva vows are, that I was faced with when deciding to take them, and when considering the prospect of taking them. And they're more mysterious to me now, especially because I see the ways in which they've reshaped my psyche and reshaped my life, and the way that things have happened causally that I did not foresee, that seem to be cosmically connected to the Bodhisattva vows, to having taken them. Like, for example, just a simple example I've talked about already is the fact that I ended up doing the ceremony on the 7th anniversary of taking the Bodhisattva vows with my friend River in Singapore, of all places. I'd been having this yearning for like 2 or 3, 4, 6 weeks before to do a specific spell about a specific thing that I was like working through psychologically, a sort of limitation. And in retrospect, I wasn't really fully owning my power. I had abandoned my power, and I'd realized I needed to shift that relationship with my own power in order to be the guild master that I was trying to be, and to steward the service guild well, and just to live my life well. And so I wanted to shift that and let go of some things and welcome in some qualities. And then I was like, oh, it looks like I'm going to be with River, and let's do a spell together. And then I remember the first morning we were together, I was like, so when are we going to do that ritual? And then I was like, wait, it's the 7th anniversary of taking Bodhisattva vows. We got to do that today. Like, if we're going to do this, it should definitely be today. And River was like, yeah, it sounds like it should be today. So we did it that day. And that's a simple and recent example that is easy to explain, but there's countless examples that are not easy to explain or are very personal, but it's like, these vows shape one's life in ways that are legible and illegible, that are easy to see and ones that are subtle and not easy to see. And the more you live them, the more they shape your life. Another example would be, I really love the idea of a soul cohort. People that you incarnate with repeatedly so as to grow together, almost like, you're great at school, but with respect to the universe. And I've just repeatedly met people in my life who feel like they're in my soul cohort, where it's like, I've incarnated with you before, I'm seeing you again, and I'm so glad you're here. And then once they're in my life, it's like, we have stuff to do together. And in a way, that's what the service guild is like gathering the homies, the soul cohort, both the people that are immediately in the service guild and the broader network of friends and allies who are supporting it. It's like, let's get the soul cohort together. Let's get the gang together. Let's do some stuff. We got to serve some beings here. We came here to do something. And it's mysterious how you meet those people. Like, some of those people that are in my soul cohort, in my own head canon, in my heart canon, it was improbable that I would meet them on a surface logical level. It's like, I don't want to go into too many details, but there was just such a recognition when I saw them, like, that's someone I need to know. That's someone I need to get closer to. That's someone I have things to do things with. And someone that I recognize almost. It's this feeling of recognition. Like, I've seen you before. And that makes me believe that I'll see these people again. I remember one time Stephen dropped me off at the airport, and I was going to fly from Vermont to the Bay, I think. And he said at the end, like, I forget the exact exchange, but it was something like he said, "I'll see you around." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll see you around." And the implication was, even if one of us died, we'll be seeing each other. Like, if reincarnation is real, that guy and I definitely have karmic connections. Same with the other brothers that we took the vows with. It's like, we are karmically woven together. We just are. And I'm grateful to be connected to them. And yeah, so for me, taking the Bodhisattva vows has been so clarifying and so beneficent. It has oriented my life towards being of service and towards living my life as in the most beautiful, noble way that I can, living my highest life. And I'm proud to have taken them, and I'm proud to try to live in accordance with them. You know, am I the best Bodhisattva ever? No. Do I know totally and completely what they mean? No. Would someone else disagree with me about the things I've said here? Absolutely. But I'm proud of the life I'm living, and I think it's a beautiful life. I think it's a noble life. Kalos from the Greek, both beautiful and noble. It's excellent. It is the best that I know how to do. And that's something that's shifted too, is rather than trying to be the Buddha or try to be Soryu or try to be Peace Pilgrim, just trying to be myself, being the best Tasshin I possibly can be, actualizing the latent possibility and spiritual virtues within my own heart such that I live them fully. There's only one Tasshin, you know? I'm the only one that can ever be Tasshin as me, by myself, and I owe it to myself and the universe to be me fully. Last thing I'll say is, in accordance with this mystery of them, they feel like a cosmic prayer, a cosmic spell. And, you know, I said before that it's like kind of the only thing that makes sense from a certain vantage point. And I really see everyone as Bodhisattva vows, as Bodhisattvas. It's like, to me, everyone that's incarnated ever is a Bodhisattva in their own way. And there are those that are sort of self-aware of that, and there are those that are not. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they know about Buddhism or have taken these vows in particular. That's not the important part. It's like, are they consciously, self-awarely striving towards being of service? And some people are and some people aren't, and that's fine. That's just part of the process. But everyone in their heart, in their soul, has this deep yearning to be of service and to live their life fully and to learn from the experience of being here, of being incarnated. That's really how it seems to me. And within the perspective of magic, like, the Bodhisattva vows are a spell. They're a spell that's very old, that is probably being cast by many beings across many realms and in many times. And we are doing that spell together. And when you align with that spell, it has a momentum and a power of its own. And importantly, it is in accordance with the desire to serve all beings. So if you act in accordance with the desire to serve all beings, if that is your genuine, heartfelt intention, if that is your state of mind, then as far as I can tell, all beings will strive to support you in that intention and in living that. And from a magical perspective, it's an incredibly powerful spell. And so I try to weave the Bodhisattva vows and the desire to serve all beings into as much of the magic that I do, as much of the projects that I do, as much of the intentions that I have, as much of the actions I take, because they're far more likely to succeed when they come from that desire to serve, and when other beings can recognize, this is good, this is wholesome, this should succeed, this is worthy of succeeding. It's not a selfish intention that's solely for one's own benefit, although one's benefit can be included, of course, and should be if it's truly to benefit all beings, but that shouldn't be the sole motivation. That's a really important shift too, is seeing that it's not serving all beings but me, but it's serving all beings, including me, and even starting from me, emanating from me. Yes, all beings, truly all beings, including this one. So the Bodhisattva vows are a spell. They're an incredibly powerful spell. They're a beautiful spell. They're a cosmic spell. And knowing that has been incredibly powerful for what choices I make, for how I conduct myself, for what projects I take on, for how I relate to those projects, for how I speak to other people. And I feel protected by them. I feel protected by the Bodhisattva vows. I have this sense, I don't know if this is cosmologically true, but phenomenologically, it feels like, and this is the way I wrote it in the day I was born, the messages that came to me in 2021. So long as I give my life to being of service, I will be protected. I forget if that's the exact words I use. But I have the eerie sense of being protected often. Like, I've made some really dumb choices in my life, and certainly since taking the Bodhisattva vows, and things just kind of work out. And sometimes it feels like the universe is taking the steering wheel and making a hard turn away from something dangerous or unsafe, either literally or metaphorically, and just helping me to not make mistakes. There's almost guardrails on my experience, and I feel protected by that. You know, from a certain perspective, all of us have guides who are looking out for us, who are there to help us. And according to some of the texts I've read about reincarnation, sort of younger or earlier souls, their guides tend to be more involved and their lives tend to be a bit more scripted. And then older and more mature souls kind of get to improvise and free play, and their guides are less involved on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. It's kind of like, yeah, live and let learn. And I feel kind of in between that, honestly. I've had this sense my whole life of, I used to use this metaphor of being like a piece of toast that was half burnt and half not cooked at all. And it's like, well, the burnt is wisdom. Like, I do feel wise in some ways. And then I also feel so immature and so young and so humbled by life at the same time, and sort of boyish. And I feel connected to both of those qualities constantly, and to humility and confidence based on them. And within that, I feel both like strength and autonomy in my vow and in my life, and also the sense of being protected and guided and supported by non-material beings that are seeking my benefit and that are looking out for me when I am not acting in my own best interests, when I am making choices that are poor, when I'm doing something silly and ill-advised. Like, I look back on certain things that have happened to me. I was like, I think I was being looked out for there. Is that true? I don't know. But that's very much my felt sense and how I relate to it also. And that gives me this sense of deep well-being and trust and safety and protection. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll close by saying to my past self, absolutely take the Bodhisattva vows. Don't hesitate. It's simpler than you think it is. It's more beautiful than you think it is. It's more powerful than you think it is. It's entirely wholesome and beneficent, and your life will be transformed by taking them. You already are a bodhisattva. Everyone is a bodhisattva, so you're just admitting that to yourself. You're not taking on something new because you've already taken these in your heart since you were a kid and in previous lives. And just surrender to that and let your life be transformed, and watch how beautiful your life becomes as you live in accordance with those vows. And as I hear myself say all this like 50 minutes of talking about this, I just feel even more inspired to live these more fully. And I'm delighted to see what will come in the next 7 years and hopefully many more years after that. And I feel such a clear felt sense of who the person is that I'm becoming and what his virtues and qualities are. And like Tasshin 60 or Tasshin 70 or Tasshin 80 has so much wisdom and virtue and strength and confidence and clarity and the willingness to say the hard thing or do the hard thing in a way that, it's not that I don't have those qualities now, but he's so firmly established in them and has earned them with such hard work over decades that I'm just like delighted to become that person. This came up recently. Someone was talking about turning 30 and they were like feeling conflicted about that. And I was like, I do not feel conflicted about aging. I'm excited to get older. Like every day I learn and grow and develop in wisdom and love and power, and I become a stronger, more beautiful version of myself. And I'm excited about that process. I'm excited to see who I become. And it's one day at a time. Every day is great. But yeah, I'm excited for the coming years of living this vow and the coming lifetimes of living these Bodhisattva vows. So I hope some of this has been interesting to you. I hope that my Bodhisattva brothers in particular really enjoyed this very long video. And if you have any thoughts, whoever you are, about anything I've said, I'd love to hear them in the comments. And of course, please forgive me for any harm I may have done in speaking about these vows or any ignorance I have about them. I'm just trying to do my best over here. That's, if there's anything I've said, is like, it's worth trying to do one's best and being willing to be imperfect in that and just keep going anyway. That's all I've done. And like, have I made a billion mistakes? Of course. Do I regret certain things? Of course. Would I do certain things differently? Of course. And that's just going to keep happening. And who amongst us, right? So anyway, here's to the vows. Blessings to all beings.